I have been studying how I may compare this prison where I live unto the world. And for because the world is populous, and here is not a creature but myself, I cannot do it. Yet I'll hammer it out. My brain I'll prove the female to my soul the father, and these two beget a generation of still breeding thoughts. And these same thoughts people this little world.
Is my Richard both in shape and mind transformed and weakened?
Your rash, fierce blaze of riot cannot last, for violent fires soon burn out themselves.
If you do wrongfully seize Henry's rights, you pluck 1,000 dangers on your head. You lose 1,000 well-disposed hearts.
I count myself in nothing else so happy as in a soul remembering my good friends. Thus play I in one person, many people, and none contented. Sometimes am I king. Treasons make me wish myself a beggar. Then am I kinged again, and by think that I am unkinged by Bolingbroke.
Methinks King Richard and myself should meet with no less terror than the elements of fire and water, when their thundering shock at meeting tears the cloudy cheeks of heaven.
For you have mistook me all this while. I live with bread, like you, feel want, taste grief, need friends. Subjected thus, how can you say to me, I am a king?
In winter's tedious nights, sit by the fire with good old folks, and let them tell thee tales of woeful ages long ago between.
And ere thou bid good night,
Quit their griefs.
Tell thou the lamentable tale
of me, and send the hearers weeping to their beds,
and in compassion
weep the fire out.
And some will mourn in ashes,
some coal black.
For the deposing of a rightful king.
Your rash, fierce blaze of riot, and
Call back yesterday! Bid time return.
time return.
For time hath set a blot
Upon my pride.
Then call them to our presence. Cousin Bolingbroke, what thus thou object against the Duke of Norfolk, Thomas Mowbray?
Thou art a traitor and a miscreant, too good to be so and too bad to live. Since the more fair and crystal is the sky, the uglier seem the clouds that in it fly. What my tongue speaks, my right-drawn sword may prove.
I do defy him, and I spit at him. Call him a slanderous coward and a villain, which to maintain, I would allow him odds, and meet him.
By that and all the rights of knighthood else will I make good against thee, arm to arm.
I will answer thee in any fair degree or the chivalrous design of knightly trial.
What doth our cousin lay to Mowbray's charge?
That Mowbray hath received 8,000 nobles, the which he hath detained for lewd employments like a false traitor and injurious villain. Further, I say, and further will maintain that he did plot the Duke of Gloucester's death, sluiced out his innocent soul through streams of blood, which blood, like sacrificing Abel's, cries to me for justice and rough chastisement.
Sir Thomas Mowbray, what sayest thou to this?
Then, Bolingbroke, as low as to thy heart through the false passage of thy throat, thou liest. Now swallow down that lie! For Gloucester's death I slew him not, but to mine own disgrace neglected my sworn duty in that case. As for the rest appealed, it issues from the rancor of a villain, a recreant in a most degenerate traitor, which in myself I boldly will defend. I am disgraced, impeached, and baffled here, pierced to the soul with slander's venom spear.
To be a makepeace shall become my age.
Shall I seem crestfallen in my father's sight, or with pale beggar fear impeach my height before that outdared dastard. Ah, thou, the earthly author of my blood, whose youthful spirit in me regenerate, doth with a twofold vigor lift me up to reach at victories above my head, and furbish new the name of John a Gaunt, even in the lusty behavior of his son.
God in thy good cause make thee prosperous. Be swift like lightning in the execution, and let thy blows doubly redoubled fall like amazing thunder on the cast of thy adverse pernicious enemy.
God, that ere this tongue of mine that laid the sentence of dread banishment on yon proud man should take it off again.
Henry of Hereford, Bolingbroke, and Derby
stands here for God, his sovereign, and himself, to prove the Duke of Norfolk, Thomas Mowbray, a traitor to his God, his king, and him, and dares him set forward to the fight.
Here standeth Sir Thomas Mowbray, Duke of Norfolk, both to defend himself and to approve
Henry of Hereford, Bolingbroke, and Derby,
to God his sovereign, and to him disloyal.
Call back yesterday.
Bid time return.
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 Stay! Let them lay by their helmets and their spears. Withdraw with us. Draw near, and list what with our counsel we have done. For that our kingdom's earth should not be soiled with that dear blood which it hath fostered, and for we think the eagle-winged pride of sky-aspiring and ambitious thoughts might from our quiet confines fright fair peace. Therefore, we banish you our territories, you, cousin Henry, upon pain of life, till twice 5 summers have enriched our fields. Mowbray, for thee remains a heavier doom, which I with some unwillingness pronounce. The hopeless word of never to return breathe I against thee, upon pain of life.
A heavy sentence, my most sovereign liege. What is my sentence then but speechless death, which robs my tongue from speaking native breath?
It boots thee not to be compassionate. After our sentence, plaining comes too late. Lay on our royal sword your banished hands. Swear by the duty that you owe to God to keep the oath that we administer. You never shall, so help you truth and God, to plot, contrive, or complot any ill against us, our state, our subjects, or our lands.
I swear.
And I to keep all this. Farewell, my liege, all the world's my way.
Uncle, even in the glasses of thine eyes I see thy grieved heart. Thy sad aspect hath from the number of his banished years plucked 4 away. 6 frozen winters spent, return with welcome home from banishment.
How long a time lies in one little word. 4 lagging winters and 4 wanton springs end in a word. Such is the breath of kings.
I thank my liege, that in regard of me he shortens 4 years of my son's exile. Yet little vantage shall I reap thereby, for ere the 6 years he hath to spend, my inch of taper will be burnt and done, and blindfold death not let me see my son.
Why, uncle, thou hast many years to live. Thy son is banished upon good advice, whereto thy tongue a party verdict gave.
Things sweet to taste prove in digestion sour. You urged me as a judge, yet I had rather you would have bid me argue like a father. Oh, had it been a stranger, not my child, to smooth his faults, I should have been more mild. A partial slander sought I to avoid, and in the sentence, my own life destroyed. What is 6 winters? They are quickly gone.
To men enjoy, but grief makes 1 hour 10.
Call it a travel that thou takest for pleasure.
Nay, rather every tedious stride I make will but remember me from what a deal of world I wander from, the jewels that I love.
Come, come, my son, I'll bring thee on thy way. And had I thy youth and cause, I would not stay.
Then England's ground, farewell. Oh, sweet soil, adieu. My mother and my nurse that bears me yet.
Cousin, farewell, and uncle bid him so. 6 years we banish him, and he shall go.
God.
That ere this tongue of mine, that laid the sentence of dread banishment on yon proud man, should take it off again.
We were not born to sue, but to command.
If you do wrongfully seize Henry's rights, you pluck 1,000 dangers on your head. You lose 1,000 well-disposed hearts.
I wasted time, and now doth time waste me. For now hath time made me his numbering clock. My thoughts are minutes, and with sighs they jar their watches on unto mine eyes. The outward watch, whereto my finger, like a dial's point, is pointing still in cleansing them from tears. Music do I hear? Huh. Keep time! How sour sweet music is when time is broken, no proportion kept. So is it in the music of men's lives. And here have I the daintiness of ear to check time broken and disordered string. But for the concord of my state in time, had not an ear to hear, my true time broke.
Oh, Merle! How far brought you High Henry on his way?
I brought High Henry, if so you call him, but to the next highway. There I left him.
The king come, that I may breathe my last in wholesome counsel to his unstayed youth.
Vex not yourself, nor strive not with your breath, for all in vain comes counsel to his ear.
And say, what store of parting tears were shed?
Faith, none for me, except the northeast wind, which then blew bitterly against our faces.
And what said our cousin when you parted with him?
Farewell. Mary, would the word farewell have lengthened hours and added years to his short banishment? Well, he should have had a volume of farewells. But since it would not, he had none of me.
His rash, fierce blaze of riot cannot last, for violent fires soon burn out themselves.
Ourself and Bushy, Bagot here, and Green, observed his courtship to the common people, how he did seem to dive into their hearts with humble and familiar courtesy, what reverence he did throw away on slaves, wooing poor craftsmen with the craft of smiles. Off goes his bonnet to an oyster wench.
Well, he is gone, and with him go these thoughts.
No, it is stopped with other flattering sounds, as praises of whose taste the wise are fond. Lascivious meters to whose venom sound the open ear of youth doth always listen.
Now, for the rebels which stand out in Ireland, expedient manage must be made, my liege, ere further leisure yield them further means for their advantage and for your highness's loss.
We will ourself in person to this war. And for our coffers with too great a court and liberal largesse are grown somewhat light, we are enforced to farm our royal realm, the revenue whereof shall help to furnish us for our affairs in hand, for we will make for Ireland presently.
Small showers last long, but sudden storms are short. He tires betimes that spurs too fast betimes. With eager feeding, food doth choke the feeder. Light vanity soon preys upon itself.
Bushy, what news?
Old John of Gaunt is grievous sick, my lord.
This royal throne of kings, this sceptred isle.
Suddenly taken, and hath sent post-haste to entreat your majesty to visit him.
This other Eden demi-paradise.
Where lies he?
At Ely House.
This blessed plot, this earth, this realm, this England.
Put it, God, in the physician's mind to help him to his grave immediately.
This land of such dear souls, this dear, dear land.
The lining of his coffers will make coats to deck our soldiers for these Irish wars.
Dear for her reputation through the world is now leased out. I die pronouncing it, like a tenement or pelting farm.
Come, gentlemen, let's all go visit him. Pray God we may make haste and come too late.
That England that was wont to conquer others hath made shameful conquest of itself.
The king is come. Deal mildly with his youth, for young hot colts being raged do rage the more.
How fares our noble Uncle Lancaster?
What comfort, man! How is't with aged Gaunt?
How that name befits my composition. Old Gaunt indeed, and gaunt in being old. The pleasure that some fathers feed upon is my strict fast. I mean my children's looks.
Can sick men play so nicely with their names?
Misery makes sport to mock itself, and since thou dost seek to kill my name in me, I mock my name, great king, to flatter thee.
Should dying men flatter with those that live?
No, men living flatter those that die.
Thou, now a dying, say'st thou flatterest me?
No, thou diest, though I the sicker be.
I am in health. I breathe and see thee ill.
Now he that made me knows I see thee ill. Ill in myself to see, and in thee seeing ill. 1,000 flatterers sit within thy crown, whose compass is no bigger than thy head. Oh, had thy grandsire with a prophet's eye seen how his son's son should destroy his sons, from forth thy reach he would have laid thy shame, deposing thee before thou wert possessed, which art possessed now to depose thyself. Landlord of England art thou now, not king, and thou—
lunatic and lean-witted fool! Presuming on an ague's privilege.
Join with the present sickness that I have, and thy unkindness be like crooked age to crop at once a too long withered flower. Live in thy shame, but die not shame with thee, and these words hereafter thy tormentors be. Convey me to my bed, then to my grave. Love they to live, that love and honor have.
And let them die that age and sullens have, for both hast thou, and both become the grave. The ripest fruit first falls, and so doth he. His time is spent, our pilgrimage must be. So much for that. Now for these Irish wars. We must supplant those rough, rug-headed kerns, and for these great affairs do ask some charge. Towards our assistance we do seize to us the plate, corn, revenues, and movables, whereof our Uncle Gaunt did stand possessed.
How long shall I be patient? Oh, how long shall tender duty make me suffer wrong?
Why, Uncle, what's the matter?
My liege, pardon me if you please. If not, I please not to be pardoned. I'm content with all. And seek you to seize and grip into your hands the royalties and rights of banished Henry. Was not Gaunt just, and is not Henry true? Did not the one deserve to have an heir? Is not his heir a well-deserving son? Now, afore God forbid I say true, if you do wrongfully seize Henry's rights, you pluck 1,000 dangers on your head. You lose 1,000 well-disposed hearts, and prick my tender patience to those thoughts which honor and allegiance cannot think.
Think what you will. We seize into our hands his plate, his goods, his money, and his lands.
I'll not be by the while. My liege, farewell. What will ensue hereof, there's none can tell. Son, by bad courses may be understood that these events can never fall out good.
We will for Ireland, and 'tis time, I trow. And we create, in absence of ourselves, our Uncle York, Lord Governor of England, for he is just, and always loved us well. Come on, our Queen, tomorrow must we part.
Now, afore God, 'tis shame such wrongs are born in him. A royal prince, most degenerate king.
My brain I'll prove the female to my soul the father, and these two beget a generation of still breeding thoughts, and these same thoughts people this little world.
The commons he hath pilled with grievous taxes and quite lost their hearts.
The nobles he has fined for ancient quarrels and quite lost their hearts.
And daily new exactions are devised as blanks, benevolences, and I wot not what.
But what on God's name doth become of this?
My heart is great, but it must break with silence, ere it be disburdened with a liberal tongue.
Nay! Speak thy mind.
And let him ne'er speak more that speaks thy words again to do thee harm.
Wars have not wasted it. For ward he hath not, but basely yielded upon compromise that which his noble ancestors achieved with blows. More hath he spent in peace than they in wars.
The king's grown bankrupt, like a broken man.
Reproach and disillusion hangeth over him. He hath not money for these Irish wars, his burthenous taxations notwithstanding, but by the robbing of the banished duke.
His noble kinsman.
But, lords, we hear this fearful tempest sing, yet see no shelter to avoid the storm? I have from Port LeBlanc, a bay in Brittany, received intelligence that Henry, Duke of Bolingbroke, with 8 tall ships, 3,000 men of war, is making hither with all due expedience, and shortly means to touch our northern shore. If then we shall shake off our slavish yoke, redeem from broken pawn the blemished crown, and make high majesty look like itself, away with me in post to Ravensburg.
To horse!
To horse!
There's doubts to them that fear.
Hold out my horse.
And I will first be there!
Northumberland, thou ladder wherewithal the mounting Bolingbroke ascends my throne. Thou shalt think the love of wicked men converts to fear, that fear to hate, and hate turns one or both to worthy danger and deserved death.
My guilt be on my head, and there an end.
How far is it, my lord, to Berkeley now?
Believe me, noble lord, I am a stranger here in Gloucestershire. These high, wild hills and rough, uneven ways draws out our miles and makes them wearisome.
Madam, your majesty is too much sad. You promised when you departed with the king to lay aside life-harming heaviness and entertain a cheerful disposition.
To please the king I did. To please myself I cannot do it. Yet I know no cause to welcome such a guest as grief, save bidding farewell to so sweet a guest as my sweet Richard. Yet again, methinks some unborn sorrow, ripe in fortune's womb, is coming towards me, and my inward soul with nothing trembles. At something it grieves more than with parting from my lord the king.
Each substance of a grief hath 20 shadows, which shows like grief itself, but 'tis not so. For sorrow's eye glazed with blinding tears divides one thing entire into many objects. More than your lord's departure, weep not, more's not seen. Or, if it be, 'tis with false sorrow's eye, which for things true weeps things imaginary.
It may be so, but yet my inward soul persuades me it is otherwise. However it be, I cannot but be sad. So heavy sad, as though on thinking on no thought I think, makes me with heavy nothing faint and shrink.
'Tis nothing but conceit, my gracious lady.
God save your majesty, and well met, gentlemen. I hope the king's not yet shipped for Ireland.
Why hopest thou so? 'Tis better hope he is, then wherefore dost thou hope he is not shipped?
That he, our hope, might have retired his power and driven into despair an enemy's hope, who strongly hath set footing in this land. The banished Bolingbroke repeals himself, and with uplifted arms is safe arrived at Ravensburg.
Oh, God in heaven forbid.
Ah, madam, 'tis too true. And that is worse. The Lord Northumberland, his son young Henry Percy, with all their powerful friends are fled to him.
Why have you not proclaimed Northumberland and all the rest revolted faction traitors?
We have! Whereupon the Earl of Worcester hath broke his staff, resigned his stewardship, and all his household servants fled with him to Bolingbroke.
So green, thou art the midwife to my woe, and Bolingbroke my sorrow's dismal heir. Now hath my soul brought forth her prodigy, and I, a gasping new delivered mother, have woe to woe, sorrow to sorrow joined.
Despair not, madam.
Who shall hinder me? I will despair, and be at enmity with cozening hope. He is a flatterer, a parasite, a keeper back of death, who gently would dissolve the bands of life, which false hope lingers in extremity.
Here comes the Duke of York.
For God's sake, uncle, speak comfortable words.
Should I do so, I should belie my thoughts. Comfort's in heaven, and we are on the earth where nothing lives but crosses, cares, and grief. Your husband, he's gone to save far off, whilst others come to make him lose at home. Here am I left to underprop his land, too weak with age, cannot support myself. Now shall he try his friends that flattered him? The nobles, they are fled. The commons, they are cold, and will, I fear, revolt on Henry's side.
My noble uncle.
Show me thy humble heart, and not thy knee, whose duty is deceivable and false.
My gracious uncle.
Tut! Grace me no grace, nor uncle me no uncle. I am no traitor's uncle, and that word grace in an ungracious mouth is but profane. Why have those banished and forbidden legs dared once to touch a dust of England's ground? Comest thou because the anointed king is hence? Why, foolish boy, the king is left behind, and in my loyal bosom lies his power.
My gracious uncle, let me know my fault.
Thou art a banished man, and here art come before the expiration of thy time in braving arms against thy sovereign.
Look on my wrongs with an indifferent eye. You are my father, for methinks in you I see old Gaunt alive. Ah, then, my father, will you permit that I shall stand condemned, a wandering vagabond, my rights and royalties plucked from my arms perforce and given away to upstart unthrifts? Wherefore was I born? If that my cousin king be king of England, it must be granted I am Duke of Lancaster. You have a son, O Merle, my noble cousin. Had you first died and he been thus trod down, he should have found his uncle Gaunt a father to rouse his wrongs and chase them to the bay. My father's goods are all distrained and sold. What would you have me do? I am a subject, and I challenge law. Attorneys are denied me, and therefore personally I lay my claim to my inheritance of free descent.
The noble duke hath been too much abused. It stands your grace upon to do him right.
I know not what to do. What, are there no posts dispatched for Ireland? How shall we do for money for these wars? Gentlemen, will you go muster men? If I know how, or which way to order these affairs, never believe me. Both are my kinsmen. The one is my sovereign, whom both my oath and duty bids defend. The other again is my kinsman, whom the king hath wronged, whom conscience and my kindred bids to right. Gentlemen, muster up your men and meet me presently at Berkeley. My lords of England, let me tell you this. I have had feeling of my cousin's wrongs, and labored all I could to do him right. But in this kind to come, in braving arms to find out right with wrong, it may not be. And you that do abet him in this kind, cherish rebellion, and are rebels all.
The noble duke hath sworn his coming is but for his own. And for the right of that, we all have strongly sworn to give him aid, and let him ne'er see joy that breaks that oath.
Well, Well, I see the issue of these arms. I cannot mend it, I must needs confess, because my power is weak and all ill left. I do remain as neuter.
The wind sits fair for news to go to Ireland, but none returns. For us to levy power proportional to the enemy is all impossible.
Besides, our nearness to the king in love is near the hate of those love not the king.
And that's the wavering commons. Their love lies in their purses, and whoso empties them by so much fills their hearts with deadly hate.
Wherein the king stands generally condemned.
If judgments lie in them, then so do we, because we ever have been near the king.
Well, I will for refuge straight to Bristol Castle.
Thither will I with you. For little office the hateful commoners will perform against us, except like curs and tear us all to pieces. Will you go along with us?
No. I will to Ireland to his majesty. Farewell. If heart's presages be not vain, we three here art that ne'er shall meet again.
That's as if York thrives to beat back Bolingbroke.
Alas, poor Duke. The task he undertakes is numbering sands and drinking oceans dry. When one on his side fights, thousands will fly.
So fare you well. Unless you please to enter in the castle and there repose you for this night.
An offer, uncle, that we will accept. But we must win your grace to go with us to Bristol Castle, which they say is held by Bushy, Bagot, and their accomplices. The caterpillars of the Commonwealth, which I have sworn to weed and pluck away.
All is uneven, and everything is left at 6 and 7.
Farewell at once. For once, for all, and ever.
Well, we may meet again.
I fear me never.
I count myself in nothing else so happy as in a soul remembering my good friends.
I've wasted time, and now doth time waste me.
Now, sir, the sound which tells what hour it is are clamorous groans which strike upon my heart, which is the bell. So sighs and tears and groans show minutes, times, and hours, but my time runs toasting on in Bolingbroke's proud joy, while I stand fooling here his jack of the clock.
My lord of Emerald, we have stayed 10 days and hardly kept our countrymen together, and yet we hear no tidings from the king. Therefore we will disperse ourselves. Farewell.
Stay yet another day, thou trusty Welshman. The king reposeth all his confidence in
thought
thee.
the king is dead. We will not stay. The bay trees in our country are all withered. Rich men look sad, and ruffians dance and leap. The one in fear to lose what they enjoy. The other to enjoy by rage and war. These signs forerun the death or fall of kings. Farewell. Our countrymen are gone and fled, as well assured that Richard their king is dead.
Ah, Richard. With the eyes of heavy mind, I see thy glory like a shooting star fall to the base earth from the firmament. Thy sunsets weeping in the lowly west, witnessing storms to come, woe and unrest. All thy friends are fled to wait upon thy foes, and crossly to thy good all fortune goes.
Like an unseasonable stormy day, which makes the silver rivers drown their shores, as if the world were all dissolved to tears. So high above his limits swells the rage of Bolingbroke, covering your fearful land with hard, bright steel, and hearts harder than steel.
White beards have armed their thin and hairless scalps against thy majesty.
Boys with women's voices strive to speak big and clap their female joints in stiff, unwieldy arms against thy crown.
Comfort, my liege. Why looks your grace so pale?
All souls that will be safe, fly from my side.
Comfort, my liege. Remember who you are.
Not all the water in the rough, rude sea can wash the balm off from an anointed king. The breath of worldly men cannot depose the deputy elected by the Lord. For every man that Bolingbroke hath pressed to lift shrewd steel against our golden crown, God, for his Richard, hath in heavenly pay a glorious angel.
Then, if angels fight,
weak men must fall.
For heaven still guards the right.
I had forgotten myself. Am I not king? Awake, thou coward majesty, thou sleepst. Is not the king's name 20,000 names? Arm, arm, my name. A puny subject strikes at thy great glory.
The Duke of York is joined with Bolingbroke.
And all your northern castles yielded up.
And all your southern gentlemen in arms upon his party.
Yea, distaffed women manage rusty bills against thy seat. Both young and old rebel, and all goes worse than I have power to tell.
What say you now? What comfort have we now? They break their faith to God as well as us. Cry woe, destruction, ruin, and decay. The worst is death, and death will have his day.
Let's talk of graves, of worms, and epitaphs. Make dust our paper, and with rainy eyes write sorrow on the bosom of the earth. Let's choose executors and talk of wills.
Our lands, our lives, and all are Bolingbroke's. And nothing can we call our own but death.
For God's sake, let us sit upon the ground and tell sad stories of the deaths of kings.
How some have been deposed,
some slain in war,
some haunted by the ghosts they have deposed,
some poisoned by their wives,
some sleeping killed,
all murdered.
For within the hollow crown rounds the mortal temples of a king, keeps death his court.
And there the antic sits,
scoffing his state and grinning at his pomp,
allowing him a breath,
a little seen,
to monarchize,
be feared,
and kill with looks,
infusing him with self and vain conceit.
As if this flesh which walls about our lives were brass impregnable.
And humored thus comes at last, and with a little pin
bores through his castle wall.
And farewell, king.
Discharge my followers. Let them hence away. From Richard's night to Bolingbroke's fair day.
My lord, wise men ne'er sit and wail their woes, but presently prevent their ways to wail. To fear the foe, since fear oppresseth strength, gives in your weakness strength unto your foe. My father hath a power, inquire of him, and learn to make a body of a limb. Look not to the ground. Are we not high?
High be our thoughts. I know my Uncle York hath power enough to serve our turn.
Bring forth these men.
Bushy and green, I will not vex your souls, since presently your souls must part your bodies. Yet, to wash your blood from off my hands, here in the view of men, I will unfold some causes of your deaths. You have misled a prince, a royal king, myself a prince by fortune of my birth, near to the king in blood, and near in love, till you did make him misinterpret me, have stooped my neck under your injuries, eating the bitter bread of banishment, whilst you have fed upon my seigneuries. This and much more than twice all this, condemns you to death. See them delivered over to execution and the hand of death.
More comfort is the stroke of death to me than Bolingbroke to England. Lords, farewell.
My comfort is that heaven will take our souls and plague injustice with the pains of hell.
What sport shall we devise here in this garden to drive away the heavy thought of care?
Go thou, and like an executioner, cut off the heads of two fast-growing sprays that look too lofty in our commonwealth. All must be even in our government.
Why should we, in the compass of a pale, keep law and form and due proportion, showing, as in a model, our fair estate, when our sea-walled garden, the whole land is full of weeds? Her fairest flowers choked up, her fruit trees all upturned, her hedges ruined, her knots disordered, and her wholesome herbs swarming with caterpillars.
The weeds, which his broad-spreading leaves did shelter, that seemed in eating him to hold him up, are plucked up root and all by Bolingbroke. I mean the king's flatterers, bushy and green.
What? Are they dead?
They are, and Bolingbroke hath seized the wasteful king. Ugh, what pity is it that he had not so trimmed and dressed his land as we this garden. Had he done so, himself had borne the crown, which waste of idle hours hath quite thrown down. King Richard, he is in the mighty hold of Bolingbroke. Their fortunes both are weighed. In the king's scale is nothing but himself, but in the balance of great Bolingbroke, besides himself are all the English peers. And with that odds, he weighs King Richard down.
But soft, but see, or rather, do not see my fair rose wither. Thou, the model where old Troy did stand, thou map of honor, thou King Richard's tomb, and not King Richard. What? Is my Richard both in shape and mind transformed and weakened? Hath Bolingbroke deposed thine intellect? Hath he been in thy heart? The lion dying thrusteth forth its paw and wounds the earth, if nothing else, with rage to be o'erpowered. And wilt thou, pupil-like, take thy correction mildly, kiss the rod, and fawn on rage with base humility, which art a lion and a king of beasts?
The castle is royally manned, my lord.
It doth contain a king. King Richard lies within the limits of yon lime and stone.
And with him are the Lord O'Merle.
Besides a clergyman of holy reverence, who I cannot learn.
Ah, belike it is the Bishop of Carlisle. The news is very fair and good, my lord. Richard not far from hence hath hid his head.
It would beseem the Lord of Northumberland to say King Richard. Alack, the heavy day when such a sacred king should hide his head.
Your grace mistakes. Only to be brief left I his title out.
The time hath been, would you have been so brief with him, he would have been so brief with you, to shorten
Mistake not, uncle, further than you should.
Take not, good cousin, further than you should, lest you mistake, the heavens are o'er our heads.
I know it, uncle, and oppose not myself against their will. Noble lords, go to the rude ribs of that ancient castle. Through brazen trumpet, send the breath of parley into his ruined ears, and thus deliver Henry Bolingbroke. On both his knees doth kiss King Richard's hand, provided that my banishment repealed, and my land restored again be freely granted. If not, I'll use the advantage of my power and lay the summer's dust with showers of blood rained from the wounds of slaughtered Englishmen. The which, how far off from the mind of Bolingbroke, my stooping duty tenderly shall show. Methinks King Richard and myself should meet with no less terror than the elements of fire and water, when their thundering shock at meeting tears the cloudy cheeks of heaven. See, King Richard doth himself appear.
Yet looks he like a king. Behold his eye, as bright as is the eagle's, lightens forth, controlling majesty.
We are amazed, and thus long have we stood to watch the fearful bending of thy knee, because we thought ourselves thy lawful king. And if we be, how dare thy joints forget to pay their awful duty to our presence? If we be not, show us the hand of God that hath dismissed us from our stewardship. For well we know, no hand of blood and bone can grip the sacred handle of our scepter unless he do profane, steal, or usurp. And though you think that all, as you have done, have torn their souls by turning them from us, yet know, my master, God omnipotent, is mustering in his clouds on our behalf armies of pestilence, and they shall strike your children, yet unborn and unbegot, that lift your vassal hands against my head, and threat the glory of my precious crown. Tell Bolingbroke, for yond methinks he stands, that every stride he makes upon my land is dangerous treason. He is come to ope the purple testament of bleeding war, but ere the crown he looks for live in peace, 10,000 bloody crowns of mother sons shall ill become the flower of England's face, change the complexion of her maid pale peace to scarlet indignation, and bedew her pasture's grass with faithful English blood.
The King of Heaven forbid our Lord the King should so with civil and uncivil arms be rushed upon. Thy thrice noble cousin Harry Bolingbroke doth humbly kiss thy hand, and by the honorable tomb he swears his coming hither hath no further scope than for his lineal royalties, and to beg enfranchisement immediate on his knees.
Northumberland, say thus the king returns. His noble cousin is right welcome hither, and all the number of his fair demands shall be accomplished without contradiction. We do debase ourselves, cousin, do we not, to look so poorly and to speak so fair? Shall we call back Northumberland and send defiance to the traitor and so die?
No! Good, my lord. Let's fight with gentle words, till time lend friends, and friends their helpful swords.
God. God. That ere this tongue of mine, that laid the sentence of dread banishment on yon proud man, should take it off again with words of soothe. Or that I were as great as is my grief, or lesser than my name, or I could forget what I have been, or not remember what I must be now. Northumberland comes back from Bolingbroke. What must the king do now? Must he submit? The king shall do it. Must he be deposed? The king shall be contented. Must he lose the name of king, a God's name? Let it go. I'll give my jewels for a set of beads, my gorgeous palace for a hermitage, and my large kingdom for a little grave. A little grave. An obscure grave. Or I'll be buried in the king's highway, some way of common trade, where subjects' feet may hourly trample on their sovereign's head. For on my heart they tread now whilst I live, and buried once, why not upon my head? O Merle, thou weep'st, my tender-hearted cousin. Come, we'll make foul weather with despised tears, as thus to drop them still upon one place,
till we have fretted us a pair of graves within the earth, and therein laid. There lies 2 kinsmen, digged their graves with weeping eyes. Will not this ill do well? Well, I see. I talk but idly, and you laugh at me. Most mighty prince, my lord Northumberland, what says King Bolingbroke? Will his majesty give Richard leave to live till Richard die?
My lord, in the base court he doth attend to speak with you. May it please you to come down.
In the base court? Come down? Down court, down king. For night owls shriek, where mounting larks should sing.
What says his majesty?
Sorrow and grief of heart make him speak fondly like a frantic man. Yet he is come.
Stand all apart and show fair duty to his majesty. My gracious lord.
Fair cousin, you debase your princely knee to make the base earth proud with kissing it. Up, cousin. Up! Your heart is up, I know, thus high at least, though your knee be low.
My gracious lord, I come but for mine own.
Your own is yours, and I am yours, and all. Cousin, I am too young to be your father, though you are old enough to be my heir. What you will have, I'll give, and willing too. For do we must what force will have us do. Set on towards London, cousin. Is it so?
Yea, my good lord.
Then I must not say no.
Call back yesterday. Bid time return. Call back yesterday.
I have been studying how I may prepare this prison where I live unto the world. Thus play I in one prison, many people.
And none contented. Sometimes am I king.
Then treasons make me wish myself a beggar.
Then am I kinged again.
And by think that I am unkinged by Bolingbroke.
I wasted time, and now doth time waste
For now hath time
me.
made me his numbering clock. My thoughts are minutes, and with
Ha!
sighs they jar their
Ha!
watches
Keep
on unto my
time!
eyes.
Sour, sweet music is when time is broke and no proportion kept.
So is it in the music of men's lives.
Learn, good soul, to think our former state a happy dream, from which awaked the truth of what we are, shows us but this.
Call forth Bagot. Now, Bagot, freely speak thy mind.
Then set before my face the Lord O'Merle.
Cousin, stand forth and look upon that man.
My Lord O'Merle, I know thy daring tongue scorns to unsay what once it hath delivered. I heard you say that you would rather refuse the offer of 100,000 crowns than Bolingbroke's return to England, adding withal, how blessed this land would be in this your cousin's death.
Princes and noble lords, what answer shall I make to this base man?
If thou deniest it 20 times, thou liest, and I will turn thy falsehood to thy heart, where it was forged, with my rapier's point.
Thou darest not, coward, live to see that day.
Bagot, thou art damned to hell for this.
Who sets me else? I have 1,000 spirits in one breast to answer 20,000 such as yourself.
Lords appellants, your differences shall all rest under gauge till we assign you to your days of trial.
Great Duke of Lancaster, I come to thee from plume-plucked Richard, who with willing soul adopts the heir, and his high scepter yields the possession of thy royal hand. Ascend his throne, Descending now from him, and long live Henry, of that name the fourth.
In God's name, I'll ascend the regal throne.
Mary! God forbid. Worst in this royal presence may I speak, yet best beseeming me to speak the truth. Would God that any in this noble presence were enough noble to be upright judge of noble Richard. Then true noblesse would learn him forbearance from so foul a wrong. What subject can give sentence on his king? And who sits here who is not Richard's subject? Thieves are not judged, but they are by to hear, although apparent guilt be seen in them. And shall the figure of God's majesty be judged by subject and inferior breath, and he himself not present? Doth offend it, God, that in a Christian climate, souls refined should show so heinous, black, obscene a deed. I speak to subjects, and a subject speaks, stirred up by God thus boldly for his king. My Lord Bolingbroke here, whom you call king, is a foul traitor to proud Bolingbroke's king. And if you crown him, let me prophesy. The blood of English shall manure the ground, and future ages groan for this foul act. Disorder, fear, and mutiny shall here inhibit, that this land be called the field of Golgotha, and dead men's skulls, oh, if you raise this house against this house, it will the woefulest division prove that ever fell upon this cursed earth. Prevent it. Resist it, let it not be so, lest child's children cry against you. Woe.
Well have you argued, sir, and for your pains of capital treason we arrest you here. May it please you, lords, to grant the common suit?
Henry! 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 Henry!
Fetch hither Richard, that in common view he may surrender, and we shall proceed without suspicion.
Alack, why have I been sent for to a king before I had shook off the regal thoughts wherewith I reigned? Yet I well remember the favors of these men. Were they not mine? Did they not sometime cry, "All hail to me"? So Judas did to Christ, but he in 12 found truth in all but one. I in 12,000? None. God save the king! Will no man say amen? Am I both priest and clerk? Well then, amen. God save the king, though I be not he. And yet, amen, if heaven do think him me. To do what purpose am I sent for hither?
To do that office of thine own goodwill, which tired majesty did make thee offer, the resignation of thy state and crown to Henry Bolingbroke.
Give me the crown. Here, cousin, seize the crown. Here, cousin! On this side my hand, and on that side yours. Now is this golden crown like a deep well which owes two buckets filling one another, the emptier ever dancing in the air, the other down unseen and full of water. That bucket down and full of tears am I, drinking my griefs, whilst you mount up on high.
I thought you had been willing to resign.
My crown I am, but still my griefs are mine. You may my glories and my state depose, but not my griefs. Still am I king of those.
Part of your cares you give me with your crown.
Your cares set up do not pluck my cares down. My care is loss of care by old care done. Your care is gain of care by new care won. The cares I give, I have. Though given away, they tend the crown, yet still with me they stay.
Are you contented to resign the crown?
No. No. For I must nothing be. Therefore, no, no. For I resign to thee. Now mark me, how I will undo myself. I give this heavy weight from off my head. With mine own tears I wash away my balm. With mine own hands give away my crown. With mine own tongue deny my sacred state. All pomp and majesty I do forswear. God save King Harry, unkinged Richard says, and send him many years of sunshine days. What more remains?
No more, but that you read these accusations and these grievous crimes committed by your person and your followers against the state and profit of this land, that by confessing them, the souls of men may deem that you are worthily deposed.
Must I do so? And must I ravel out my weaved-up folly? Gentle Northumberland, if thy offences were upon record, there shouldst thou find one heinous article containing the deposing of a king and cracking the strong warrant of an oath, marked with a blot, damned in the book of heaven. Nay, all of you that stand and look upon, whilst that my wretchedness doth bait myself, though some of you with Pilate wash your hands, showing an outward pity, yet you Pilates have here delivered me to my sour cross, and water cannot wash away your sin.
My lord, dispatch, read o'er these articles.
Mine eyes are full of tears, I cannot see. And yet salt water blinds them not so much, but they can see a sort of traitors here.
My lord!
No lord of thine, thou hot, insulting man! Nor no man's lord. I have no name, no title, but 'tis usurped. Alack, that heavy day that I have worn so many winters out, and know not now what name to call myself. And if my name be Sterling yet in England, let it command a mirror hither straight, that it may show me what a face I have, since it is bankrupt of his majesty.
Go, some of you, and fetch a looking-glass.
Read o'er this paper while the glass doth come.
Fiend, thou tormentest me ere I come to hell.
Urge it no more, my lord Northumberland.
The Commons will not then be satisfied.
They shall be satisfied. I'll read enough when I do see the very book indeed where all my sins are writ, and that's myself. Bring me the glass, and therein will I read. No deeper wrinkles yet? Hath sorrow struck so many blows upon this face of mine, and made no deeper wound? Flattering glass, like to my followers in prosperity, thou dost beguile me. Was this the face that every day under his household roof did keep 10,000 men? Was this the face that, like the sun, did make beholders wink? Was this the face that faced so many follies, and was at last outfaced by Bolingbroke? A brittle glory shineth in this face. As brittle as the glory is the face. For there it is, cracked in 100 shivers. Mark, silent king, the moral of this sport. How soon my sorrow hath destroyed my face.
The shadow of your sorrow hath destroyed the shadow of your face.
Say that again. The shadow of my sorrow. 'Tis very true my grief lies all within, and these external manners of laments are merely shadows of the unseen grief which swells with silence in the tortured soul.
Go, some of you. Convey him to the tower.
Good. Convey. Conveyors are you all, that rise thus nimbly by a true king's fall.
On Wednesday next we solemnly set down our coronation. Lords, prepare yourselves.
Must we be divided? Must we part?
Hand from hand, my love, and heart from heart.
Banish us both, and send the king with me! Then whither he goes, thither let me go!
Weep thou for me in France, I for thee here, better far off than near, be ne'er the near. Go, count thy way with sighs, I mine with groans.
So longest way shall have the longest moans.
One kiss shall stop our mouths, and dumbly part. Thus give I mine, and thus take I thy heart. Adieu. The rest let sorrow say.
You, holy clergyman, is there no plot to rid the realm of this pernicious blot?
My lord, Before I freely speak my mind herein, you shall not only take this sacrament to bury mine intents, but also to effect whatever I shall happen to devise. Come home with me to supper, and I'll lay a plot shall show us all a merry day.
Children, yet unborn, shall fill this day as sharp to them as thorn.
Alack, poor Richard.
But heaven hath a hand in these events. To whose high will we bound our calm contents? To Bolingbroke are we sworn subjects now, whose state and honor eye for eye allow.
Here comes our son O'Murl.
O'Murl that was, but that is lost for being Richard's friend, and madam, you must call him Rutland now. I'm in Parliament pledged for his truth and lasting fealty to the new-made king.
Welcome, my son. Who are the violets now that stew the green lap of the new-come spring?
Madam, I know not, nor greatly I care not.
What's news from Oxford? Hold those jousts and triumphs?
For aught I know, my lord, they do.
You will be there, I know.
If God prevent not, I purpose so.
What seal is that things without thy bosom? Yea, looks thou pale. Let me see the writing.
My lord, 'tis nothing.
No matter then who see it, I will be satisfied. Let me see the writing.
I do beseech you, pardon me. It is a matter of small consequence, which for some reasons I would not have seen.
Which for some reasons, sir, I mean to see. I fear.
What should you fear? 'Tis nothing but some bonds he has entered into.
Wife, thou art a fool. Boy, let me see the writing.
I do beseech you, pardon me, I may not show it.
I will be satisfied. Let me see it, I say. Treason. Foul treason. Villain! Traitor, slave!
What is it, my lord?
Whoa, who's within there? Saddle my horse. God, for his mercy, what treachery is here?
Why, what is it?
Give me my boots. I say, saddle my horse. Now, by my honor, by my life, and by mine troth, I will appease
What
the...
is it?
Peace, foolish
I
woman.
will not peace. What is the matter, O'Murl?
Good mother, be content. 'Tis no more than my poor life must answer.
My life answer.
Bring me my boots, I will, unto the king.
Strike him, O'Murl. Oh, poor boy, thou art amazed, and villain nevermore come in my sight.
Bring me my boots, I say.
Why, York, what wilt thou do? Wilt thou not hide the trespasses of thine own? Have we more sons, or are we like to have, and wilt thou pluck my fair son from mine age, and rob me of a happy mother's name?
Thou fond, mad woman, wilt thou conceal this dark conspiracy? A dozen of them here have ta'en the sacrament, and interchangeably set down their hands to kill the king at Oxford.
He shall be none. We shall keep him here, then what is that to him?
Away, fond woman. Were he 20 times my son, I would appease.
Hadst thou groaned for him as I had done, thou wouldst be more pitiful. But now I know thy mind. Thou dost suspect that I have been disloyal to thy bed, and that he is a bastard, not thy son. Sweet York, sweet husband, be not of that mind. He is as like thee as a man may be.
Make way, unruly woman!
After O'Murl, mount thee upon his horse. Propose and get before him to the king, and beg thy pardon ere he do accuse thee. I'll be not long behind, though I be old, I doubt not but to ride as fast as York. And never will I rise up from the ground till Bolingbroke hath pardoned thee. Away! Begone!
Can no man tell me of my unthrifty son? 'Tis full 3 months since I did see him last. If any plague hangs over us, 'tis he. But who comes here?
Where's the king?
What means our cousin that he stares and looks so wildly?
God save your grace. I do beseech your majesty to have some private conference with your grace, alone.
Withdraw yourselves and leave us here alone. What is the matter with our cousin now?
Forever may my knees grow to the earth, my tongue cleave to the roof within my mouth, unless a pardon, ere I rise or speak.
Intended or committed was this fault? If on the first, how heinous ere it be, to win thy after love, I pardon thee.
Then give me leave that I may turn the key, that no man enter till my tale be done.
Have thy desire.
My liege, beware, look to thyself, thou hast a traitor in thy presence there.
Villain! I'll make thee safe.
Stay thy revengeful hand. Thou hast no cause to fear.
Open the door, secure foolhardy king. Shall I for love speak treason to thy face? Open the door, or I will break it open.
What is the matter, uncle? Speak, recover breath. Tell us how near is danger that we may arm us to encounter.
Peruse this writing here, and thou shalt know the treason that my haste forbids me show.
Remember, as thou readst, thy promise past. I do repent me. Read not my name there, my heart is not confederate with my hand.
It was, villain, ere thy hand did set it down. I tore it from the traitor's bosom keen. Fear and not love begets his penitence. Forget to pity him, lest thy pity prove a serpent that will sting thee to the heart.
Heinous, strong and bold conspiracy. Loyal father of a treacherous son.
Mine honor lives when his dishonor dies, or my shamed life in his dishonor lies.
What ho, my liege, for God's sake, let me in! What shrill voiced suppliant makes this eager cry?
A woman and thy aunt, great king, 'tis I. Speak with me, pity me, open the door.
Oh, king, believe not this hard-hearted man.
Thou frantic woman, what dost thou make here?
Sweet York, be patient. Hear me, gentle liege.
Rise up, good aunt.
Not yet, I thee beseech. Forever will I walk upon my knees till thou give joy, till thou bid me joy by pardoning Rutland, my transgressing boy.
Good aunt, stand up.
Nay, do not say stand up. Say pardon first, and afterwards stand up. I never longed to hear words till now. Say pardon, king, let pity teach thee how.
I pardon him, as God shall pardon me.
God on earth thou art.
But for our trusty brother-in-law and the bishop, with all the rest of that consorted crew, destruction straight shall dog them at the heels. Good uncle, help to order several powers to Oxford, or where these traitors are. They shall not live within this world, I swear, but I will have them if I once know where. Uncle, farewell. And cousin, too, adieu. Your mother well hath prayed, and prove you true.
Come, my old son, I pray God make thee new.
I have been studying how I may compare this prison where I live unto the world. And for because the world is populous, and here is not a creature but myself, I cannot do it. I count myself in nothing else so happy as in a soul remembering my good friends. My brain, I'll prove the female to my soul the father, and these two beget a generation of still breeding thoughts, and these same thoughts people this little world. Thus play I, in one person, many people, and none contented. Sometimes am I king, then treasons make me wish myself a beggar. Then am I kinged again, and by think that I am unkinged by Bolingbroke, and straight am nothing. But whate'er I be, nor I, nor any man that but man is, with nothing shall be pleased, till he be eased with being nothing.
Is my Richard both in shape and mind transformed and weakened?
Your rash, fierce blaze of riot cannot last, for violent fires soon burn out themselves.
If you do wrongfully seize Henry's rights, you pluck 1,000 dangers on your head.
Methinks King Richard and myself should meet with no less terror
Than the elements of fire
and water.
When their thundering shock at me
tears the cloudy cheeks of heaven.
Thou King Richard's tomb, and not King Richard.
Richard!
The eyes of heavy mind.
I see thy glory like a shooting star fall to the base earth from the firmament. Is my Richard your rash?
Methinks King Richard
Now King Richard's and not
haunts me, let it sound no more. For though it have helped madmen to their wits, in me it seems it will make wise men mad. Yet blessing on his heart that gives it me, for 'tis a sign of love, and love to Richard is a strange brooch in this all-hating world. Hail, royal prince! Thanks, noble peer. What art thou, and how comest thou hither?
I was a poor groom of thy stable, king, when thou wert king, who, travelling towards York with much ado at last, have gotten leave to look upon my sometimes royal master's face. Ah, but it yearned my heart when I beheld in London streets that coronation day, and Bolingbroke rode on roan Barbary, that horse that thou so often hast bestrid, that horse that I so carefully have dressed.
Rode he on Barbary? Tell me, gentle friend, how went he under him?
So proudly his feet stained the ground.
Fellow! Give place, here is no longer stay.
If thou love me, 'tis time thou wert away.
What my tongue dares not, that my heart shall say.
My lord, will it please you to fall to?
Taste of it first, as thou art wont
My
to
lord,
do.
I dare not. Sir Pierce of Exton, who lately came from the king, commands the contrary.
The devil take Henry of Lancaster and thee. Patience is stale, and I am weary of it.
Oh. Help! Ah!
Oh. Oh, now what means death in this rude assault? Oh. Go thou and fill another room in hell. That hand shall burn a never-quenching fire that staggers thus my person. O Merle, thy fierce hand hath with the king's own blood stained the king's land. As full of valor as of royal blood, both have I spilled. Ah! Were the deed were good. For now the devil that tells me I did well says that this deed is chronicled in hell. Mount, my soul. Thy seat is up on high, whilst thy gross flesh sinks downward here to die.
O Merle, I thank thee not, for thou hast wrought a deed of slander with thy fatal hand upon my head and all this famous land.
From thy own mouth, my lord, dies this deed.
The guilt of conscience take thou for thy labor, but neither my good word nor princely favor. With Cain go wander through shades of night, and never show thy head by day nor light. Lords, I protest my soul is full of woe, that blood should sprinkle me to make me grow.